What are you 100% sure of you saw, but nobody believes you? A blue heron was flying with a snake hanging from its mouth. The snake was still wiggling and trying to break free. It finally was successful, but the heron caught it in its foot and somehow in midair threw it back up into its mouth. He's probably so happy somebody saw that. And yet nobody believes him too. I was at an amusement park near Cincinnati, probably 20-ish years ago, and I swear to God I saw a blue guy. Literally blue skin. Like a black person, only blue. Turns out there really is a well-known family, the Blue Fugits, in Kentucky with this condition. Still no one believes me. I was walking down a gravel road to a pool with friends when I felt someone poke me in my ass with a stick. So I turned around, but my friends weren't holding a stick. Then I felt it again, so I told them to bug off. They looked confused. I felt it again while looking at them. I reached into my swim shorts to see what's up. It was a big grasshopper. I felt violated, but I let it go. When I was a kid, I had this really creepy clown that was sat on a little wooden swing that hung from my fireplace in my bedroom. Now I'm not afraid of clowns, but that thing made me feel like I was being watched, but my parents wouldn't let me get rid of it because my grandmother gave it to me. One day I had had enough of the damn thing. I was probably about 10 because it wasn't long before we moved out of that house. I decided that I didn't want it watching me playing, so I turned it round to face the wall. It was hanging close enough to the wall that it wouldn't just spin back round. I sat back down to continue playing with my brats, and after a few minutes I got that prickly feeling like I was being watched again. I looked over my shoulder and that fucking clown's head was on backwards. I noped the fuck out and ran downstairs screaming and crying and begged my mother to come up and look. She did, but when we got to my room, the whole fucking clown was facing forwards again. My mum told me to stop being stupid and making a fuss. So the doll conveniently fell out of my window and smashed its porcelain face on the slabs. I used to do junior lifeguards at a small beach in CA. When you were old enough to be responsible, or at least act like it, you had to help out with the younger kids in the afternoon. It was my day to help out, and we were leading the kids in stretches. The leaders were facing away from the water and the kids were lying on their backs, hugging their knee. I turned to look at the water. No real reason. I saw 2 seagulls dive bomb out of the sky. It looked like they were wrestling. They landed on the shore where the water isn't more than ankle deep. One of them gets the upper hand and started to hold the other one's head under the water, drowning it. Seagull 2 breaks free, rears its head back, screeches, then stabs the first seagull in the chest with its beak. The first seagull then takes off real quick and the second one flies after it. Not a single person believed me. I saw an elderly man walking his dog at the park pick up a snake, call it a bad boy, and then guide it back into its hole in the ground. A black cougar in upstate New York ran across the road in front of me in the dark. I thought it was a skinny black lab until I saw its tail was as long as its body. Eastern cougars have been extinct for 50 years or more. In the UK, a while ago we had builders repairing the fence in our garden, and me being the curious kid decided so stay there all day and watch them. They were halfway through changing the fences out when I saw something crawl out of the hole. Got a closer look and I couldn't believe it. It was a scorpion. I tried telling everyone what I saw, but they didn't believe me 'cause a scorpion in the UK just won't happen. Years later I still remember this and no one believes me. Guess I'll bury this with me, but was still a cool thing to see. I live in a kind of condo complex and a lot of people here, including myself, have cats. I know my cat sometimes mingles with the other ones outside, and sometimes they fight. Anyways, I was walking back from school at around 3 p.m. and I was just about to walk inside my house until I heard a distant meow, and it sounded like my cat. Then there were more and more meows, and I kept following it until I reached someone's porch. Nobody lived in that condo, so I just walked onto the porch and I shit you not, I saw about a dozen, 10 or 14, cats having a meeting. An actual fucking meeting. They were all sitting in a perfect circle. My cat was a part of it too, occasionally meowing but all acting very polite and cordially. No hissing, licking, fighting or anything. Nobody believes me that I saw the neighborhood cats have a meeting. This is probably a pretty boring one, but while I was snorkeling in Lanzarote with my family when I was 11, I saw a cute brightly colored fish. The water was crystal clear, and as I swam up to it and reached out to touch it, I saw something like a tiny flicker of lightning shoot out of its mouth and hit my fingers. It felt like a static shock when it connected, and I spluttered up out of the water and let out a yelp. My dad asked what was wrong, and when I explained, both parents looked at me like I was crazy. I don't really know what kind of sea life can do that kind of thing, and being so young at the time, I didn't really bother looking it up. But it was always a weird memory that stuck with me the time a fish electrocuted me. I was up early and killing time on the computer before leaving for work. I hear a tap on my front window. I assumed it was my father-in-law who lives across the street. I pull back the curtain and there's a juvenile mockingbird sitting on my window. It made a weird croaking noise and flew away. I go back to reading. About a minute later, I hear the tap again, pull back curtains, same bird. It made eye contact, made a sound, then flew to a branch in front of the window. My wife was still in bed and I didn't want her to think I was leaving for work, so I called to her. "I'm going outside, there's a bird trying to get my attention." I go out the front door and the bird is gone, but a utilities truck is just then pulling to a stop in front of our meter. We forgot to pay the water bill. I told the guy to give me a chance to pay it, and I drive down to the Fiesta to pay the bill. If that bird hadn't warned me, our water would have been shut off and we wouldn't have known until I was already gone for the day. The only reason anyone believes me is I told my wife prior to opening the door. While at a stoplight on a mountain road in Pennsylvania, I saw 2 black bear cubs come out of the woods and roll down a hill into the street, and the mama black bear came down and chased them back up the hill with her paws. It happened MOM. I'll share an additional creepy story while we're at it. This is from a friend of mine, so I cannot confirm that it happened to me, but I genuinely trust him. His family moved into a new house when he was a kid, and he remembers quite vividly that he would wake up at nights and see a man standing in his doorway just staring at him. He was quite young and didn't quite grasp the situation. He thought it might have been his dad checking on him from time to time. He told his parents about it, and it eventually stopped. He stopped seeing this figure standing in the door at nights. He didn't think too much of it later in life. He assumed he experienced sleep paralysis or something similar. 20 years later, it came up in a conversation with his parents, and they told him that it freaked the living shit out of them when their 5-year-old son told them he sees people at night. His dad never stood in the door just staring at him, especially not on the days when he saw this figure in the door. After learning about the previous owner of the house committing suicide, they called a priest, who came over and blessed the house. That's around the time my friend stopped talking about seeing a man in his doorway at nights. This thing that he would see at nights never approached him, never talked to him, never moved. Just stood there, looking at him. My friend legit thought he had sleep paralysis for years, till his parents revealed the whole priest thing decades later. It properly freaked him out. A 7-foot-long shark in the Puget Sound, right at the surface. I was fishing with my siblings and my mom, and my brother was struggling to get a little dog fish in. Well, I get this brick of a fish up, it's running towards me, then running away. No one will look at my rod about to snap, because they're busy with the dogfish. Well, I get this sucker up to the surface, and it gets right up along the side of our boat, a Grady White 22 at the time, and it stretches from one end of the cockpit to the other, and then some. It was at least 7 feet long, and as soon as someone freed up to come help me, it snapped the line and just coasted away underwater. Nobody saw it but me. Was in my hometown visiting my mom. My brother came in too. One night, around 3 a.m. we were chilling on the front porch looking out on the lake. We heard a commotion in a tree above us. Then a loud thud. Went to investigate. On the ground was some sort of snake wrapped around a squirrel, but the squirrel had seemingly bitten most of the snake's head off. The both seemed alive, but barely. We were staring dumbfounded when in a big whoosh some sort of owl came in and picked up the tangled mass and flew off. Even our mom doesn't believe us. Myself and another guy were working on an oil rig when we saw a floating silver disc about 200 m away over the sea. It stayed for 5 minutes then flew off over the horizon at an incredible speed. It was so unusual that neither of us had the bottle to tell anyone, as we'd have been ridiculed. A spider the size of my hand in our living room. Gone when I came back with something to kill it. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.